A couple of years ago, I received a call from someone interested in working with my firm, and the call was supposed to be about investment management and financial planning, all the usual things. But within a few minutes, the conversation had veered from retirement planning to things that they wish they'd known before they took the plunge in retirement. And it makes sense, right? Because retirement is a major life reorientation, and it doesn't come with an instruction manual. And so someone who is a retirement professional, right, my job is to help people prepare for retirement. That conversation really stuck with me. And so over the years, I started writing down a list of common things that I heard from people that they said, I wished I'd known before I retired. But before I dive in, my name's Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Now, I'd really encourage you to watch to the end because the final two things I talk about, I think, are some of the most important things I hear from people that they wish they'd known, and they seem completely opposed to one another at first glance. But I think it's a journey that people go through. Now, if you don't want to watch the whole video, just fast forward to the last couple of minutes of them. But I'd really encourage you to watch those final two. The first thing people wish they'd known is that they're going to need to make a mindset shift. And there are multiple mindset shifts that you might need to make. Now, one of the mindset shifts that comes up a lot is moving from saving to spending. Many of you, you've done an incredible job saving. You've been very frugal over the years, so you will have plenty of money to retire. But now you have more money than you could ever spend. But it's hard for some people to shift from that saving mentality to giving themselves permission to enjoy some of the money that they've saved. You know, one of my jobs as an advisor is to tell clients, it's okay to spend money. It's okay to take that trip you've always dreamed of. It's okay to splurge on those golf clubs or whatever that thing is that is your splurge. Now, that doesn't mean you go crazy and wild and you blow up your budget, but it also means it's okay to take a few trips and to do some of the things that you've always planned on. But it takes a mindset shift. The other mindset shift is moving from working to pleasure. It's really hard for some people to make that shift. Just to give you kind of an example from my life, on a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, it's really hard for me just to sit around and hang out with my family. Because in that moment, particularly when I first am transitioning into the weekend, there's this anxiety, like I should be doing something productive. I should be working. I shouldn't just be sitting here. And then I have to tell myself, no, it's okay. I worked hard all week long. It's okay to just relax. So in the same way, when you've worked for 40 years and your worth and your value is tied to your work, and now all of a sudden it's okay to maybe spend the whole day golfing or take 2 to 3 weeks traveling, it's hard sometimes to make that shift. You feel like you should be doing something productive, but the thing that you should be doing in that moment is just enjoying your retirement. And so there are multiple mindset shifts that people said, I wished I knew beforehand that I was going to have to make these shifts and have been more prepared for it. Now, there are a lot of other mindset shifts I could go through, but those are just a couple that I hear over and over again. The next thing people said they wish they'd known is that you could try before you buy. Now, no one actually said those exact phrases. That's my own cheesy way of putting it. But what people have said is, I wished I'd known that I didn't have to make that move. I could maybe do a trial run first. And so a few people have told me, I really wished I hadn't moved to, another state or whatever. They moved because they want to save money in taxes or have a lower cost of living or warmer weather. And then they made the move and realized actually they didn't enjoy it there. They didn't like being away from their friends and their family or the life that they knew. And they said, I wish I'd known that it was okay to maybe rent an Airbnb for 6 months or a year. Other people said, I actually love that I moved, but I wished I'd tried out some other cities in the state first to see where I really wanted to live. And so people said they wish they'd known that it was okay to do a trial run, to take some time to really kind of figure out where they want to be, what they want to do, and that they don't have to have it all figured out ahead of time. Next, people said, I wished I'd known that healthcare was going to be more expensive than I expected. I talked about this more in another video, but according to a recent report, a 65-year-old couple retiring today will need over $300,000 in today's dollars, not in inflated dollars, in today's dollars to cover medical expenses throughout retirement. And that's up from $245,000 in 2015. So the cost of healthcare is increasing dramatically, and a lot of people just are not prepared. They kind of always assume that Medicare is going to cover everything, but there are a lot of expenses that you're going to have to pay out of pocket. And so you need to be prepared for that. The next thing people said is, I wished I'd known to pay attention to inflation. Now, I think this is less of an issue now because most people now have been awakened to the reality of inflation. But I want to give a little bit of perspective to this because from 1913 to 2013, so a 100-year period, the average U.S. inflation rate was 3.22%, which doesn't sound that bad. In fact, that's a fairly reasonable rate of inflation, particularly compared to lots of other countries. But here's what's really interesting. At a 3.2% rate of inflation, that means prices double every 20 years. And so what cost $50,000 today, 20 years from now could cost $100,000. And if you have a 40-year retirement, it's possible it's going to go from 50 to 100 and from 100 to $200,000 in retirement. And what I see often is that people don't take inflation into account when they're putting together the retirement plan. When you think about investment withdrawals, you need to calculate inflation. When you're thinking about your pension, you need to ask, does my annuity have an inflation rider? These are things you need to think about when you're putting together your plan, because often what people do is they'll say, I need $50,000 a year. I have $20,000 in Social Security, $20,000 in annuity, and $10,000 in pensions. But if that annuity and that pension aren't inflation adjusted, Social Security is going to be fine 20 to 30 years from now, but you could have a significant shortfall in your budget. So you just want to take inflation into account when you're putting together that plan. The next thing people said they wish they'd been prepared for was the expense of keeping a home. Now, most people in retirement at some point, a few years in, maybe 5 years, 10 years in, they planned on paying off their home if it's not paid off already. But what's taken people by surprise is just some of the other expenses of keeping up a home. So because of inflation, which we just talked about, home repair costs have skyrocketed, right? If you need a new roof or you need to paint the house or an appliance goes out, a water heater, those costs have skyrocketed and taken a lot of people by surprise. Also, as the values of real estate has increased, it's also driving up property taxes. Some states have protections and homestead exemptions and different things like that, but retirees are seeing their property taxes increase. And then the other thing that is really catching people by surprise is the giant spike in homeowners insurance and car insurance. Just to give you a personal example, a year ago when my homeowners policy renewed, it was $1,400 a year. I just got my renewal notice. I haven't had any claims and it jumped to $3,600 a year. I saw a similar increase in my car insurance. And so these home costs are taking a lot of people by surprise because when they put their budget together, they really weren't expecting to spend so much money on their house because they thought it was taken care of. They had a paid off home, but now they've got these skyrocketing costs for home repairs and homeowners insurance and property taxes in some cases. And people are like, I just wish I'd known to be prepared for this, because some of these unexpected expenses can have a really devastating impact on a retirement plan. The next thing people said they wish they knew before they retired is that marriage is hard. Now, I don't think anyone discovered just in retirement that was marriage is hard. But I think more what happens is retirement shines a spotlight on how difficult marriage can be, right? Because retirement is a complete reorientation of the life that you're going to live. There's really life pre-retirement and post-retirement. It's one of the biggest transitions you're going to make in life. And so that can be a strain on a marriage, particularly if you're not used to being around each other that much. And now all of a sudden you're around each other a lot. You need to kind of renegotiate what life looks like and learn how to live with this person that you've known for a long time, but maybe haven't spent a lot of time with. The next thing people wish they'd known is that long-term care costs generally aren't covered by Medicare, and they can be incredibly expensive. This is particularly coming to me from people who are caring for an aging parent, and they are seeing how incredibly expensive long-term care costs are. And then they're starting to look into maybe getting long-term care insurance and realizing there aren't a lot of great options. There used to be better plans available, but the problem was that insurance companies were losing money on these plans. Why are they losing money? Because long-term care costs are incredibly expensive and a lot of people use it. And so people said, I wished I'd known that I needed to plan for this more. And so one of the conversations I have with a lot of clients, and something you need to think about, is how are we going to pay for long-term care? The next thing people told me is I wish they knew that time was more valuable than money. Now, no one said that exact phrase to me, but that sentiment kept coming up over and over. And it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes. It's from an old book from the 1970s called Your Money or Your Life. And in the book, there's this quote that says, money is something we choose to trade our life energy for. I love that quote. Another way of saying it is we exchange the best years of our life, the years we are most active and healthy, for more money. And the question is for you, is that trade-off worth it? Now, some of us, we have to keep working to make our retirement work. Others of us have a great life balance. We're able to spend all the time we want with our family. We're able to travel and do the things we want while we continue working. But for others of us, we hate the life that we're living, and we know that we are exchanging the best years of our life just for a bit more money that we may not even need. And for some of you who feel a bit stuck, it might be time to think about, can I transition into retirement slowly? You know, one of the other things, and I thought about having this as a separate line item, but this has kind of come up a few times. But people basically said, I wished I'd known I could work a part-time job. Right? They thought it was like an all or nothing thing. Like I work or I retire, right? It's this binary choice. But for a lot of people, in retrospect, they're like, you know what? I could have actually retired a bit earlier if I'd taken some part-time work or done some contract work. And so maybe for you, It's finding that balance. Maybe it's not time to quit working altogether, but maybe it's time that you scale back, work part-time, have a more flexible work schedule. It's going to be different for each person, and it's really tricky. For some people, you don't have an option. You're going to have to work. But for some of you, you need to answer the question, is it worth exchanging my life energy, the best and most vital years of my life, for a few more dollars? Now, the final two things I want to talk about really in some ways seem completely opposite, but I think it's often a journey that people kind of go through in retirement. The first thing people have told me, and I've heard this a lot, is depression in retirement is a real thing. A study published in the Journal of Population Aging found that those who were retired were twice as likely to report feelings of depression than those who were still working. And in addition, the London-based Institute of Economic Affairs found the likelihood that someone will suffer from clinical depression goes up by about 40% after retiring. And so there's this transition period that many people go through. You worked for 40 years. Your value, your self-worth, who you were was attached to the work that you do. And now you stopped and there's just this slump. And so many people after they retire kind of experience a slump where they go through depression. And just knowing that may happen and that's okay. You are not alone. A ton of other retirees go through the exact same thing. But there's some good news on the other side. But so many other people have told me, I wished I knew how happy I was going to be in retirement. A study from Princeton University and the London School of Economics found that happiness peaks 2 times in life. At age 23, right? You just got out of college, you kind of feel like you have the whole world in front of you. And at age 69. And that's really in line with what I've seen, right? And I believe that there's this reorientation. You lived one life previously, and now you're living a completely different life. And so what I often see is that people kind of go through this dip when they enter retirement, and then after they reorient themselves to this new way of living, it can be some of the happiest years of their lives, which interestingly is around age 69, right? So you retire 63, 64, 65, takes a few years to really fully orient yourself. But once you fully kind of embrace this new life, this new gift, this new opportunity that you've been given in retirement, it can be some of the happiest and the best years of your life. Retirement, as you know, isn't just a lengthy vacation. It is a profound change that demands preparation, understanding, and I said this at the top of the show, a healthy dose of reality. And for many of you, it's an opportunity to hit the reset button and to live the life you have always imagined. Now, if you're trying to decide if now is the time to retire, watch this video on why you should retire now.